Thanks for the introduction, Harshal. It's lovely to be back. I wear many different hats in the work that I do, and I'm coming on stage now to speak all about MultiQC. So I'm going to take you all away from a world of Nextflow and NF Core for a few minutes. But I think probably many of you in the room will have hopefully heard of MultiQC and likely use MultiQC in the work that you do. And I'm going to talk about some of the things we've released recently which should make the tool a bit more flexible and powerful for the workloads that you're running. So if there is anyone in the room who doesn't know what MultiQC is, I think of it as a bit like a universal translator for bioinformatics. We have hundreds of different bioinformatics tools, and they all produce results and logs and summary statistics, but they all use their own flavors of different formats. There's very few solid conventions on how tools should report their results. So what MultiQC does is it has kind of a number of different kind of modules within it which can understand those outputs, parse them, bring them into a standardized format, and then generate a human-readable report for you to understand what happened in your analysis, which samples were good, which samples failed. It works with, I think over 140 different bioinformatics tools now, and you can have multiple tools and multiple samples in a single report, be it 10 samples up to 10,000. MultiQC started off as kind of a little side project for me, basically, back in the mid-2010s, but really hit a niche and has become very, very popular, which is lovely. It's hugely cited by the community, so thank you if there's anyone in the room who's done that, and gets run an awful lot. This is only a short talk, but it gets run about once every 1 to 2 seconds, so it will have been run hundreds of times while you're watching us. And yeah, we passed well past 1.5 million downloads now. And the curve just keeps going up. So I stood on this stage, not exactly this stage, but this conference last year, and I introduced Vlad to the Seqera family. MultiQC had kind of been my pet project for many years, and it's one of the big motivations for joining Seqera for me was to kind of be able to sustain MultiQC as an open source tool for the community in the long term. And bringing Vlad on as a full-time developer for MultiQC has made a huge impact in the amount of code that's been written, the number of releases you may have seen coming out. And much of the work he's been doing this year has been kind of behind-the-scenes work, like a bit like Stacey was talking about, the kind of work where if it goes well, you don't notice it. But shoring up that 10-year-old code to be modern Python best practices, stable, and building a platform on which we can build new features going forward. We've had some blog posts this year about some of those new features. There's new plots. A big one that was just recently was one of the oldest issues we've had open for a long time is being able to group samples so you don't get these ugly holes in your MultiQC tables. And what I'm going to talk about a bit today is MultiQC as a library. So really the focus of my talk today is the flexibility of MultiQC, how you might be familiar with the command line tool, but you can run it in many, many different ways. So as Harshal says, true Seqera fashion, let's dive into a live demo. We updated the MultiQC website recently and moved it to its new home at Seqera. And this is something I kind of previewed last year, but we've made it a bit more robust this year, which is being able to run MultiQC in your browser. So if you just want to try MultiQC, maybe you're kind of new to bioinformatics, not yet comfortable on the command line, you can just type in MultiQC, hit run, grab some files that you may have been emailed or whatever, drag and drop them in, and you can see all of these files here. And this is using WebAssembly. To run MultiQC, it's installed it inside my browser in a sandbox, and I can run MultiQC fully fledged, the full tool, just in my browser without having to install anything, and it will generate a report for me, hopefully. Yeah. And there we go, and that was fully local. Once I loaded the web page, I could have disconnected the Wi-Fi, and it would have worked fine. This gives me an opportunity to show you the new sample grouping very quickly. FastQC runs on a single FastQ file, for example, so you get 2 samples for FastQC and 1 sample for FastP, I think I'm running it with. So normally you'd have a table with kind of holes in it as MultiQC struggles to align these. But now we have this nice kind of drop down, and you can see the individual results from FastQC. You can also see summaries on a single row. It's a small thing, but it's been taking a long, long time to do. A little quality of life improvement for you all. I'm going to skip through a few demos here just for the sake of time. The next one, which again many of you will be familiar with, especially if you're building NF Core pipelines, it comes up a lot, is something we call custom content. So MultiQC is great if your tool is already supported. But what happens if you have some of your own custom scripts? and you've got some data and you don't necessarily want to go through the process of writing a module and waiting for MultiQC to be released. Or maybe it's just your one script and it doesn't make sense to have that available for every MultiQC user in the world. So what you can do is if you've got like a TSV file or an image or anything like that, you can kind of add the MQC file suffix there, and MultiQC will find it and guess about what to try and do with it. So in this case, it's found that MultiQC TSV file, and then it's passed that, and because of a little header line at the top, it's put that data into the general stats table. And sure enough, we can see that then pop up alongside all the other data that I gave MultiQC as a new column on the MultiQC report there. Very scientific, percent magic. Jumping in then, the next thing, the thing that's new, is the MultiQC scripts. So MultiQC is written in Python, but for basically its whole life, it's just been a command line tool. The fact that it's written in Python doesn't really affect how you run it. But through some of the refactoring that Vlad's done, we've made it now possible to import MultiQC into a Python script. So this is the absolute simplest script that you can write with MultiQC. We're just pulling it in at the top, import MultiQC, and we're calling two MultiQC functions, saying parse logs, and we're giving a file directory to look in, and then we're saying, great, write a report. And now, instead of doing MultiQC dot, instead of running a MultiQC command line, I can just run this script. I say Python, script file name, and it looks a lot like I've run MultiQC normally, because I have. And this just generates exactly the same report you would normally see. Okay, that doesn't really bring much advantage. What else can we do with this? Now we are in a Python scripting environment, we can start to do more interesting things. This example is a real-life example. I got asked a question on Slack by Rika. She was saying, FastP, it puts these columns into general stats. The original FastP data has the total reads before filtering, and I want to put that into general stats. And she was talking about running MultiQC multiple times, doing custom content transformations, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, well, with scripts, now we can just dive into the internals of the data model that MultiQC has generated and insert that column into the table. And now without any plugins, without any additional software, the same container, the same everything, we can run that script and we can pull in that data and customize a report in any way we please. And we can think of other ways. This is example data from viral recon pipeline. So maybe we have a database of metadata related to these samples, and we can, again, extend our script to connect to databases, other data sources, do any kind of data processing in the middle of the MultiQC parsing, and insert that into the MultiQC report. Very flexible, hopefully very powerful. Okay, now we have scripts. What else can we do with scripts? We'll see if I can get this to work. This is another live demo. I'm in Seqera platform now, and we saw Data Studios earlier. This is in the showcase. I'm going to connect to this studio, which is running a Jupyter notebook. And now, because I can import MultiQC, I can also import it into notebooks and other kind of Python environments. And so if I hit run all cells, we're going to import MultiQC. We're going to call that same function, parse logs, parsing the same FastP data. And I can sort of put this in a notebook format and add in markdown documentation as I go along, plot specific plots, write my own custom analysis around that, my own documentation, and use this as like a one-off report in an analysis environment. Really, really powerful. Again, harnessing the underlying functionality of MultiQC, but applying it in different scenarios. And then one more on this front, if I can do it in a notebook, I can also do it in other kinds of scripts. There's a Python toolkit I really like called Streamlit. So this is a Python script written using a Streamlit library. I'm importing it here. I've got a few of the Streamlit functionalities to put in a sidebar, write a title and stuff. But then kind of scattered in with this, you can see the MultiQC commands as well. For example, to fetch plots from MultiQC and plot them and things. And so now I can do Streamlit run MultiQC app. And we can get an interactive Streamlit app running where I can change things on the fly, for example, where the data might be. I can see all the information here using a Streamlit interface, see the plots in that interface. And because this is an interactive app, I can take this custom data and maybe add a couple of numbers there, hit enter and it will update in real time. And then when I'm happy, I can still generate a report at the end of it. Really cool. Now we've got it in a Python language, the sky's the limit. Right, one more live demo for you, the riskiest of them all. We got a little sneak peek of this earlier, but let's see if I can make it run for you in real time and explain a little bit about how it works. I've got the same data in here, and now I've got an extra config file which is just going to do a single config attribute. I'm going to tell it AI summary true. We'll see if it works. I'm going to do MultiQC dots. So there's a few things we thought about. This was kind of, Vlad's been working on both the teams, working on the AI and also working on the MultiQC. So he's been perfectly kind of situated to understand how both of these systems work and how to get them to talk. That ran so fast because I ran it earlier and it's cached the results, so you didn't even see it happen. But basically what happened on the back end there is it generated the data. We have all the data in memory, and we can pass that to Seqera AI and ask it to summarize our report. And sure enough, as we saw briefly earlier, now our MultiQC report here has a little summary at the top where it can walk us through what to expect in the report. Something you might notice here, it says at the bottom who provided the summary. I'm a big advocate of open source. It's literally in my job title, and I don't like lock-in. And so if you already have your own API provider keys with OpenAI or Anthropic, you can give those keys to MultiQC, and it will use that instead. You don't have to use just Seqera AI. It's just we think it's better with Seqera AI, and I'm going to show you why. But if you want to use a different one, that's also fine. We can do some cool stuff through this. It tells us that these samples look bad. I'm a bit skeptical with AI, so I'm not always believing it, but I'm going to just click on these samples, and it's going to highlight these in the report. And if I sort this table by pass filter, sure enough, these are the samples it's telling me are a bit wonky, and they do look pretty weird. And if I scroll down to this table, you can see nestled in all these samples, these ones do look particularly low quality. So my gut feeling is that this is probably telling me the truth. The real fun, though, is because we control this AI and we can control where it runs, we can put buttons in like this one, continuous Seqera AI. And it doesn't, yes, it works. Okay. So now I've gone into the Seqera AI chat interface, but it's brought over with it the full context and the memory of the MultiQC report. So I can continue to have a conversation approach with it, and I can say, hello, how many reads were in sample 39? Now, obviously, if you drop this into any chat system, it would have no idea what sample 39 is, but it already knows everything about my data because it's just looked at my MultiQC report. So I can go straight on into a long conversation and dive into the data and try and explain it more in a conversational manner. Here you can say it's actually said, you've got 0 reads, but it says, well, we can look at other things in here, and we can go into fast units, and you can see how many reads pass filter, and it knows a lot about the data. This is very early stage, which is why I was a bit nervous about live demoing it, but it's something that we are going to build more and more in over the coming kind of months. We've got a lot more ideas of other things we can do, and hopefully it'll be really genuinely useful for many of you in the audience. Right, with that, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Vlad, who did all the work, but also many thanks to all the contributors. We have huge numbers of contributors for MultiQC, very, very lucky in that respect. And really, MultiQC has kind of become the standard for bioinformatics reporting. So many people building their own tools then come to MultiQC and also write the MultiQC module to handle the reporting. It's one less thing for them to build their own special tooling for. So really, really lucky to have such a fantastic community behind the tool, and I hope that may continue. With that, happy to